Hey there, Renegades, and welcome to Episode 7 of Pedagogy in Practice. In this episode, we are going to explore 5 tips for better course navigation. Now, having good course navigation is essential to the development of an online course. Well, really any course. Because what we want is we want to have your students focused on the content they are trying to learn rather than on how to navigate your class. So I'm Professor Matt Andrasian-Jones, and let's get right into it. One way you can help your students navigate your course is by providing an introductory video right from the homepage of your class, which means as soon as your students log into your Canvas course on the homepage, place a video that walks them through various aspects of your course. Now, typically what you're going to want to have is you're going to want to have a video that has a screencast of what it is that you're doing on screen, and just do a simple walkthrough of various elements of your class. Show them how to navigate, show them where to access various materials, and you're probably also going to want to tell them a little bit about the class in this video. Now, the video itself should not be very long. What you state should be concise, and in total length, it should probably only be 3 to 5 minutes. So that's tip 1. Okay, tip 2 is to use your Canvas modules. Canvas modules are a great way to organize your content because you can pull anything that you've built into your class right into a module, and in most cases you can even build your content right into the module right from that page. So one thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that you organize your module and structure it so that there's a clear order in which your students should follow. A clear hierarchy, in other words. So for example, in this module, I have a header that states that this is the weekly introduction, and then I actually provide the weekly introduction. So my students can go to that page, read what's coming up on the week ahead, and then I give them the actual content. I give them the header that then provides underneath of which the reading is provided. Then there's the assignment, and the assignment is created. Now to do this, you simply need to come up to the plus button at the top of the module, click plus, and let's go ahead and add a text header. So from this drop down here where it says add and it gives me page, by default I think it's assignment, you're going to want to come over here and go text header. Now here's where you can spell out the next division of your module. So I'm just going to go ahead and say quiz, and I'm going to give it a colon at the end, and I'm not going to indent because I want it to be flush left. And I'm going to say add item. Now it's going to go ahead and plop this text header right in my module, and it's flush left all the way. Now underneath this header, I'm also going to want to provide my quiz. So I'm going to come back up to the plus, and instead of saying text header from the drop-down, I'm going to select quiz, and I'm going to go find my quiz, and there's my week 1 quiz. And this time I am going to indent it because I want to create a visual hierarchy so that it looks like my quiz is nested underneath that quiz header. So I'm going to go ahead and say indent level 1, I'm going to say add item. And there you have it. I have my quiz nested under the quiz header, and my module looks very structured. So modules is a great way to organize your content and to provide a visual hierarchy to help your students determine what process to follow each week in your class. All right, let's go on to tip 3. Okay, for tip 3, we're just going to say stay consistent. And I mean that through every level of the course you're creating. So, for example, here you can see, as we stated in the previous tip, I have chunked my modules and I have organized them so that there's a clear structure to each and every module throughout the entire length of my class. So that's one area. But you don't only want to do this in modules, you also would want to do this in other areas. So for example, here's my weekly introduction page. Every time my students hop into my weekly introduction, they get the exact same structure, whether it's week 2, week 3, or week 16, it's all going to look the same. At least the structure. The content's going to change, but the structure of it is going to look. I even do this with assignments, quizzes, discussion posts, and even announcements. Announcements have a clear structure to them that closely models everything else throughout the length of the course. Staying consistent helps your students be able to focus on learning the content that you're providing them rather than having to figure out where the content is placed, and that's exactly what we want. So one thing you definitely want to do is stay consistent throughout every level of your course. Okay, for tip 4, it's quite simple. Chunk the content. So much like when we created modules and we clearly divided the areas of the module, you're going to want to do the same thing for the content you create within your course. So here's an example. Here's an assignment. Notice that there are clear chunked areas where I'm going to place different types of information for my students. I have a title. I also have an assignment number. You don't necessarily need that, but just know that clear area for the title. There's a clear area to input instructions for the assignment, a clear place where I state the criteria and what makes a successful assignment, instructional objectives, and student learning outcomes. And you're probably going to want to do this for all different types of content you're creating in Canvas, whether that's quizzes, assignments, discussions. You want to make it so that they can clearly get the information that they're looking for when they come to each type of content. Plus, in addition, it ties really nicely to the criteria provided in the CVC OEI course design rubric. All right, let's move on to tip 5. Okay, for the 5th and final tip in this video, it's simple. Just get feedback. Designing your course is going to be an iterative process. And it's going to be an iterative process of getting feedback from your students, testing and trying things, reconfiguring it, redesigning it, and doing it again. And this might change semester to semester. Sometimes you might figure out things that you can make quick changes on within the semester, but I highly recommend don't make too many changes in the semester or else you're going to leave your students entirely lost. So, the 5th and final tip is to get feedback, and there's a couple ways you can do that. I'm going to show you one here. So again, in your module, create a title header for student feedback. Then at the top of the module, go ahead and let's add a quiz. So I'm going to say create quiz, and I'm going to give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to say student feedback. I'm going to indent it level 1 because I want it nested in the module. And I'm going to say add item. Now when I come into the quiz itself, I have a couple options. Typically, I want my students to feel safe, that there's not going to be any sort of retribution, if they criticize me too hard. So I want to make sure that they can provide that feedback anonymously. So when I come into my quiz, I'm going to click Edit. Now my goal is to change the quiz type. If I scroll down, instead of doing graded quiz, I have 2 options for anonymous feedback, both survey options essentially. I can do a graded survey, where I can now come and you'll notice I have a radio button down here that says Keep Submissions Anonymous. I can also do an ungraded survey that also allows me to keep submissions anonymous. And I find that that's a great way to allow my students to feel safe providing me that feedback. And then of course the questions that I create on this survey are going to have to deal with course navigation, how I've set up things, maybe how I've chunked various forms of content, or how they're able to get from one area to another. So I'm going to ask some questions to get that sort of feedback to help inform my design for the next iteration of my course. In this video, we've covered some really good tips, and we've covered quite a few things. I just wanted to let you know that if you want to get a head start, or if you don't have the time to sit there and design out your course like that, we in the Academic Technology Department have already taken some of those steps for you so that you can actually import some of these tools or some of these designs into a shell and then work to build your course. Now, I don't recommend importing this into an existing course. I would recommend getting an empty Canvas shell and importing this in. But let me show you what I'm talking about. If you go to the Canvas Commons and just type in Bakersfield College, you're going to access a ton of resources that have been created for you by people on campus. And if you scroll down, you will eventually come to one that is called Bakersfield College Academic Technology Canvas Templates. If you upload this into a Canvas shell, it's going to come with a homepage, templates that you can use to design your class, and a lot of the things that we covered in the video. So that's it. I hope you have a great summer. That's episode 7. See you in the fall. Bye.